Blackwater Ben by William Durbin, Chapter 28, Snow Snakes and Hodags. After lunch, the dishes were done. Ben and Nevers walked to the bunkhouse for a visit. Even with the sun full in the sky, the cold stung Ben's cheeks. Nevers scrunched the snow under his boots. I don't care if it gets down to 60 below. If we get double Sundays out of it. 2 days off in 1 week, Ben said. Even if we have to cook, not hauling those frozen dishes back from the cut saves us a heap of boiling and scraping. Just before they got to the bunkhouse, Ben said, I think I figured a way to get back at those jacks for tricking us. What you got in mind? Let's visit the pencil pusher. Wally scoffed when he saw the boys. I suppose both of you gazebos went and cut yourselves this time. Nope, Ben said. Did you come to bother me about hiring on as log drivers? Not that either, Ben said. I need a bottle of castor oil. The pencil pusher grinned meanly. Got the bloats, huh? I've been feeling poorly. Wally picked a greasy, green-looking bottle off his shelf and plunked it on the counter. This will get you trotting to the outhouse before you can whistle Dixie. When Wally started to write down the cost of the castor oil in his ledger, Nevers said, You can charge half to me. You bound up too? Nevers nodded and made a pained face. But the minute they got outside, he grinned. Are you planning what I think you are? The only way to get back at those jacks is through their stomachs, Ben said. And as strong as Paws seasons up his beans, I figured no one will even notice if we stir a little castor oil in. For good measure, I'll borrow a board from the wood butcher and nail the outhouse door shut when we spring the trick. We'll teach them to scare us, Ben chuckled. I'll stash this bottle in the cook shack. See you in the bunkhouse, Nevers said. On his way to the bunkhouse, Ben swung by the filer's shack. At first, Charlie only talked about how hard it was going to be for the company to fill its contract if the weather stayed bad. Then Ben looked up at his mother's photograph. Do you know where that was took? I don't have a single picture of my mother. Charlie put down his file and rubbed his eyes. I'll be straight, lad. I've told you every detail I can about Lucinda Warren. You've got to remember that as smitten as I was, I only spent a few months with her. Your father knew her for years. For a while I thought Pa was going to talk more, but he barely said a thing lately. The bigger the hurt, the longer it takes to heal. You're the same as Pa, Ben said, the voice rising more than he had planned. You want to keep everything to yourself. Charlie looked at Ben, but he didn't say anything. The trouble is with you is that you've been hiding in the woods too long. You're like that of Thoreau fellow who went to Walden Pond. The only difference is you never came back. Ben slammed the door behind him, not caring which direction he went. Ben marched past the blacksmith shop and down the road, but the cold air brought him to his senses. Why had he yelled at Charlie? It wasn't Charlie's fault that Ben's mother died so young. How could he have been so stupid? Ben kicked an ice chunk, and it flew to a clump of frozen hazel brush. Feeling foolish, he covered his ears with his hands and jogged back to camp. When he stepped into the bunkhouse, Wendy yelled, Close that door, you gazebo! I've burned up 2 days worth of wood already. The card players cussed him for letting in a draft. Ben took a seat by Nevers, who asked, What took you so long? You look froze. I went for a little walk. In this weather? You must be getting as batty as that old dentist. Nevers went back to watching the card game. The top of the stove and the first joint of the chimney pipe were cherry red, and the draft plate rattled from the rush of air. The lower logs on every wall were covered with thick coating of white frost. Poultice Pete had both his mackinaw and hat on. You might as well turn those ear flaps down too, you big sissy, Swede said to him. Don't mind if I do, Pete said. Laying his cards on the table, he pulled his flaps over his ears. Hold up the game, why don't you, Swede shouted. In all my days, I've never seen such a pack of lily-livered lumberjacks. Packy finally spoke up. If you're so set on proving your stupidity, why don't you take your Swedish fiddle out to the cut and drop a pine on that thick skull of yours? His fiddle? Nevers looked at Ben. His saw. Don't you call me thick skull, Swede said, looking down at Packy's feet. You're the one that don't have any brains enough to wear boots in the wintertime. Packy had to laugh at that, and the tension eased. Ben looked under the table. Though Packy was barefoot as usual, he kept his feet off the floor by resting his heels on the bottom of the rung of the chair. Without looking up from the whittling, Wendy asked Nevers, What does our Carolina boy think of Minnesota winters now? Ben and I decided it's boot-squeaking cold, Nevers said. I'll bet you miss home in weather like this. Maybe a smidgen, Nevers cracked his knuckles as he talked, but once my ma died, I couldn't get shed of that place fast enough. It might be warm in Carolina, but the nice weather breeds a heap of ornery critters. And I don't mean just galley nippers like you got around here. Galley nippers? Ben asked. That's what we call mosquitoes. But they're nothing compared to the copperheads and rattlesnakes and biting spiders. We got our share of snakes around here too, Jigger said. Would you play cards? Swede yelled. What's he mean? Nevers asked. Jiggers is talking about snow snakes, Wendy said. Snow snakes? The cold don't bother them because they travel under the snow, Wendy said. On a day like today, they burrow deep into the drifts and hide. Nevers' eyes got big. That's why you gotta be on the lookout when you bend down to pick something out of the snow. They'll grab your throat quicker than you can blink, Wendy said. And we got other animals you haven't heard of. Like what? Like a hodag. It's about the size of a small steer. Though it moves slowly, it's smart as a whip. It's got a hairless body covered in striped and checkered pattern like the Mackinaw coats the Jacks wear. And that's why they're so blamed hard to see in the woods. Instead of a horn, the hodag has a large spade-shaped bone on its bone that blocks its vision. Being that he can only look up, his main diet is porcupine. He meanders through the woods, peering into the treetops. Whenever he spots a porky, he blinks his eyes and licks his chops. Then he probes the ground with his spade bone. Once the roots are loose, he steps back and rams the tree with his head. As soon as it topples over, he straddles the trunk and walks along it until he finds the stunned porky, which he swallows head first. How do they live in the winter? Nevers asked. When fall comes, they rub against a big old balsam and cover up with pitch. They roll around in a patch of hardwood, coat themselves with leaves, and lie down until spring. If only you jabbermouse would do the same, Swede said.